Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Weekly Wrap-Up Volume 2. Let's just get right to it. Maxi Hughes was robbed last night. That was his decision. He should have won that fight. And people are out there once again sounding naive, saying things like we need better judging in boxing and missing the point. The judges did their job last night. The house fighter won. The guy that was more valuable, the top rank, won the fight. Those scorecards were predetermined, which is one of the reasons I bet George Kambosos by decision at minus 145. Maxi Hughes was just going into an environment in which he just wasn't going to win. Look, man, in reality, this is going to keep happening. But if you want some change, if you want to affect some real change, stop yelling the word incompetent and start yelling the word corruption. This isn't incompetence. Stop sounding naive. Boxing judges know boxing. And they're not incompetent. They're not that incompetent to where a guy who loses that decisively ends up winning the fight that decisively on the scorecard. This is corruption, point blank, period. And you'll likely not get changed because the boxing media will likely not yell corruption because they don't want to lose credentials. Maxi Hughes is a better fighter than George Kambosos. He proved that last night, but George Kambosos is valuable to top rank as an opponent going forward to guys like Shakur Stevenson, Vasily Lomachenko, and Keyshawn Davis. So they made sure he got the decision. It's that simple. So is Kambosos closer to the guy who beat Teofimo or the guy who lost to Devin Haney twice? Both. It's both. He's just good enough to beat a great fighter like Teofimo who's having an absolutely terrible night. But he's not good enough to beat great fighters when they're having average to good to great nights. And as we get more data on Kambosos, we also start to realize that he struggles with pure technical boxers. Particularly southpaws, as we saw last night. He just couldn't figure out Maxi Hughes. He was completely lost in there last night. I feel bad for Hughes. He deserved his decision. He's worked hard for last night and he didn't get the decision, so hopefully he gets some sort of break, some sort of fight off of his performance last night. And this is why it's tough betting boxing. A lot of people made a good choice in betting Maxi Hughes last night and it didn't pay for him, but these are the breaks. Last night it paid for me. It didn't pay for me when I bet Lomachenko or Ismael Barroso. These are the breaks. In boxing, you have to price in outside factors when betting on fights. Before we get into Keyshawn Davis and the rest of the 135 prospects coming up, let's touch on breaking news between Haney versus Prograis at 140. It was reported on the ESPN telecast last night that Devin Haney will likely be vacating his straps at 135 to move up to 140 to challenge Regis Prograis for the WBC strap. Love this matchup if it comes off. It's intriguing. And as we've explained on the channel the past few weeks, it makes perfect sense. Devin Haney is busting at the seams at 135. Regis Prograis looked vulnerable in his last fight. DAZN desperately needs big fights as their schedule has been horrendous. And Eddie Hearn is willing to overpay for American fighters, being that he's trying to build up his American stable. So Eddie Hearn and DAZN will likely overpay for this fight. Devin Haney and Regis Prograis will be paid handsomely. Haney will get a shot at another belt in another weight class. And whoever wins this fight will be in the pole position for a unification fight, an even bigger fight with Teofimo Lopez. This is a great matchup as both fighters have pros, cons, advantages, disadvantages coming in. Regis Prograis would rather fight guys like Barboza and Jose Ramirez stylistically, who he doesn't have to find in there, than a guy like Devin Haney and other guys moving up from 135, which he'd have to unpack. And it would likely take him a couple rounds to unpack those styles. With Devin Haney, he'd rather not fight southpaws. Regis Prograis a southpaw, and Devin Haney struggles to land the jab against southpaws. Intriguing matchup. Hopefully they get it to the finish line for November. Keyshawn Davis won a wide and decisive decision last night against Francesco Patera. And this was once again great matchmaking by Top Rank. Although this didn't deliver as far as entertainment value for Keyshawn Davis and it's not going to get people talking, this was much needed work in a 10-round fight against a tough vet who hadn't lost in 6 years and has never been knocked out. Fighters need fights like this in the development stage. But Keyshawn Davis wants to be fast-tracked, he wants to be moved along quickly, and Top Rank seems to want to oblige, so the development process will not be long for Keyshawn Davis. Davis, Andy Cruz, Floyd Schofield, and 28-year-old everlasting prospect Frank Martin have all fought recently. When we're strictly going off the eye test, we can tell a lot about a fighter by how his handlers handle him. It took 4 years for them to put Frank Martin into a fight with a fighter with a winning record. And fighters like Keyshawn Davis and Andy Cruz are being moved quickly. This may seem like simple analysis, but I'm going to assume for the time being, as all these guys are question marks, that the guys who are being moved quicker have the higher ceiling, as their handlers have more trust in them winning big fights. Floyd Schofield seems more limited than the other 3 guys I've mentioned as far as technical ability, but he will bring an entertainment value that the other fighters don't bring, and that the guy just likes to brawl and he's going to be in good, entertaining fights. All 4 of these fighters bring value to the table, and hopefully we see them in the ring with each other sooner than later. This was the weekend wrap-up. Like, subscribe, hit those alerts. Hope you've enjoyed.